Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. Of course, this podcast, like all of ours, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Level, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you to the folks at Cantex Roofing and Construction, certainly for being a part of this show weekly. Red Raiders, Grant McCaslin's group, 3-0 after, 3 conference games. They sit atop of the Big 12 standings with the Baylor Bears, but about to get tougher. About to
Well,
get,
yes.
Yeah, about to get tougher. But hey, I think you've done more than maybe what people were expecting. I don't know. I think, if you looked at it objectively, you would have thought you really need to be 2-1 at least after 3 conference games, but you're 3-0 because of that road win, and you're obviously your home win versus Kansas State, not easy at all. But it's been fun trying to, and what was fun about this past weekend and watching you beat Kansas State is that it was a different path to victory compared to what we had seen previously. Because I would have thought, based on kind of what we'd seen against really good teams, and I do think Kansas State is that, they're going to win plenty of games in the Big 12. That you had to shoot it well, you had to have one of those low turnover games, and you had to not get hammered on the glass. And you did have a fairly low turnover game with just 9. You doubled them up, they had 18. But you didn't. It was one of your worst shooting nights in a long while.
Yep.
And yet you figured out a way to manufacture some offense by getting to the free throw line and kind of grinding it out. And, you showed a lot of toughness and grit. And I think that's a credit to those kids and Grant and all that, because, Kansas State, man, they're like you in that I don't know if anybody's looking at them and saying, hey, they're going to win the Big 12. I don't know if they have enough to withstand the 18-game gauntlet and end up at 14-4, 15-3, something like that, which I'm not, I'm not sure what it's going to take conference record wise to get it done, because it's just, I mean, I think you probably got to be a bit better than 12-6, to win the league, I mean, obviously, but, anyway, there's probably 6 to 7 teams that are right there in that non-true contender spot, at least yet. Now, Grant would tell you, hey, we should be in that category. This is our goal and all those things. But most of the outside folks that talk about this, Kansas State, though, they're going to be right there in the they scoring, athleticism, length, depth, playmaking, good guards, all that stuff, and really good coach, obviously. But you're fortunate enough to win that one. But hey, man, you don't apologize for it. You found a way, and it was a lot of fun in the arena over the weekend.
In your recent history, at least the good years of recent history, it wasn't all games where you ran away. Obviously, there were quite a few of these type of games where you had to grind out victories, but more often than not, you found a way to win games, even when you weren't shooting the ball well or when you weren't your A game wasn't on. You found a way to win games. And last year, think about how many close losses you had last year where you found a way to lose games. So it is nice to see this kind of victory where it felt like you truly snatched victory from the jaws of defeat and it was such a weird game too with Kansas State, because you're up for most of the first half, and then you see one of the hottest shooting streaks within a game I've ever seen. Just nobody could miss, and Perry leads the way on that. Um, they had turned the ball over, I think 41% of their possessions in the first half, yet you trailed by 11 at halftime. I mean, there was some weird stuff going on. But again, yeah, that's what the good teams do in this league. You just find a way to get it done. And 1 point better is 1 point is a win.
Oh yeah, yes it is. And you celebrate it.
Yeah.
And you understand that you know you're gonna have to roll your sleeves up and win these kinds of games or try to. But they always say TTW, man, toughest team wins.
Yeah.
And I thought Jerome Tang, after the game was over, he said, this is when a team can get into the paint, get to the free throw line, and get offensive rebounds in the last 3 to 5 minutes of a game, that's the team that usually wins, and this is what you did. So regardless of because the 20-0 run, I'm trying to remember. There's a couple of games ago, and what I mean by all this, what I lead into this is like you show up to the arena sometimes or a stadium and you see something for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think it was Darion Williams. It was a couple of games ago. Maybe it was against Oklahoma State. I guess it was. And he's on the opposite wing and he attempts
I think I know what you're
three,
talking about.
and it gets wedged in
Yes.
the basket, like on the other side of it. I'm like, that's virtually impossible.
I have never seen that before. Yes.
Yeah, like I don't know how he did this.
You
I
get,
don't
and I
know.
think it was against Oklahoma State. You get the
Yes.
wedgie on the opposite side. I mean, the math and the geometry on that has to be just
Yes.
perfect for that to be able to happen. So yeah,
But you can now add
yeah,
opponent 20-0 run in your building to that, because that was a first for me.
yeah,
It felt helpless.
yes,
It felt like they were playing horse. And you just were like you got the horse really quickly because that's an H for
I had
you.
well,
That's an O for you.
I'd already resigned to the fact that I'm like, okay, I got to change my mindset. You're not going to win them all. You weren't going to go 18-0. I had already, just
You
because
quit.
of yeah, well,
So you
because of
quit.
how helpless that feeling was. I'm like, they're not going to miss this game. So I
Oh,
mean,
well, what makes it even worse is 12 of that 20 points was by Tyler Perry.
yes,
And as he started, because he was held scoreless
hmm,
in the first part of the half for 10 to 12 minutes. Well, he made the first one. Then the second one went in. He starts to chirp at the bench a little bit, and there's
uh-huh.
a lot of familiarity
Oh
there,
yeah,
and still very close relationships, even before, during, and after this game.
yeah,
But as the second one went in, and then the third one, and then the
yeah.
fourth one, I mean, he is like, dude, y'all know what I'm capable of. I mean, like, you gonna stop me? And then I thought it was interesting because later on in the game, in the second half, he kind of he like Tex coaches would say about him, he's able to manipulate contact. It was the way
Yes,
that they phrased it.
yes.
And basically it's a fancy way of selling. He can bait the official into a call. He can sell it,
You
whatever. But he
flop pretty well.
manipulates contact.
Yeah.
Well, and when you're smaller, you have to get everything out of what you
Oh
can,
sure.
what you were God given, and he does this. And Grant McCaslin is looking like, I just see the back of Grant and I see Tyler Perry look directly that way, and he goes, "You taught me that." Like you're the one that taught me
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Again, wild set of circumstances. I mean, to the Tech fan, this wasn't probably some big, side story or sidebar to this game. I mean, internally, it very much was, because they had coached him for 2 years. But yeah, the 20-0 run was a new one for me. And he still has a lot of contact with the folks. I just think that if you were to look at bringing him in, would it have worked with he and Pop? would it have worked with he and I don't know, and I think that you run like if you think about it, think it through. Why didn't you take him? Why isn't he on your team? You could have gotten him, and I think you could have. If you come in from North Texas and you bring your best player in,
Right.
I think that you run the risk of just this is me connecting dots that I think that are there, but you run the
Mm-hmm.
risk of all these other players think that automatically it's going to be all about the Tyler Perry,
Yep. Favoritism. Sure.
and we don't necessarily want that, and plus, Perry is a 1 year guy, and all that stuff. And so, between, I think, Pop and Joe and all those things. So I don't know. I'm just speculating there, but it was just kind of an interesting sidebar in the game over the weekend on kind of how it played out, and a 20-0 run though, to sum that up, that's wild, man. But I think you answered it early in the second half with like a 7 or an 8-0 run of yourself to kind
Sure.
of get back into this game a little bit. Warren Washington did a good job in some isolation situations in the paint, able to get some buckets, kind of stop the bleeding a bit, allow you to get your sea legs under you, and then you just grinded, because you were still down 8 points with 3 minutes to go, I think,
Yeah.
and figured that away, man.
Yeah. Did figure out a way. As you mentioned, though, it does get a little tougher. You go up against a Houston team, in Houston that was ranked number 2 in the country last week. Obviously, went through the gauntlet of the Big 12 and experienced some of that. But this is still, in my opinion, level, and you could disagree or agree. I don't either way. This is still one of your top 3 teams in the Big 12 as far as title contenders that you're going to hit the road to their place this week.
Yeah, and I was looking just to make sure before I said this, but yeah, they had an 0-2 week last
Yeah.
week. Tough trips to Ames and to Fort Worth. Yet they are still
Hmm.
number 1 in the net rankings in the country,
Even
which
with
is
2 losses. Yeah.
even with 2 losses, went from 14-0 to 14-2 and 1-2 in the league, and yet,
Hmm.
yeah, still number 1 in the net rankings. I mean, I've seen, I think you've probably seen this as well, but the ESPN does these like analytical, like
Yep.
projecting who's going to win these games. I think
The
they have.
BPI, I think is what they call it. Yeah.
Okay, have you seen it
Yeah. Or no, I haven't seen it for this
for
game.
this game?
No.
They give Texas Tech like a 4% chance to win this game. It's like
Wow.
95% and change
Wow.
in favor of Houston based on just the numbers. And I don't know if they factor in, ooh, they're going to be pissed. I will maintain this. You probably have a better than 4% chance of winning this game. Okay.
Okay.
I think that goes without saying. Okay. However, this is either going to be the best time to play Houston or the absolute worst. I mean, there's a hole in the side of the locker room in Shomai Arena in Fort Worth because of some frustration. There's, I mean, after they dropped that loss or that game, over the weekend in Fort Worth.
Right.
And, again, I think Kelvin Sampson, his son's name's Kellen, associate head coach, I think, but
Sure.
Kelvin Sampson, he has said on the record repeatedly that this 15-1 or 16-2 conference record that we've kind of been able to, those days are over.
Yeah.
Like any road win that you get is to be, it's like you run out of there as quick as you can and hope that they don't take it away from you. And you take advantage of your opportunities at home. And so obviously they're back home now and it'd be a sold out for Titus Center and all that. So yeah, the Red Raiders are certainly going to have their hands full. And plus you have potential ranking and a 3-0 conference record, bullseye on your back and all those things. But you just have to, you're going to have to withstand the storm. But yeah, Houston is very talented. But again, the league is harder than what they've been used to, and it will ultimately benefit them. Not that anybody's worried about them,
Right.
but that's why the Big 12 has been able to do so well in March. I think in recent years, just because the league it prepares you for it.
I'm not sure, Level, that this isn't your toughest game. Just looking at it from this point on, toughest game on your schedule left. It
I don't disagree.
like because at least when you play Kansas, you have them at home. I mean, this is a road game, and I think you're right. You're going to get a team that's going to be pretty angry after a couple of losses, and
Well,
Sampson knows the Big 12, and he could preach to his team how tough it was going to be on the road. But until they actually experienced it, now that they've gone through it, they are getting it. So you got to think this team is going to be um, plenty ripe for this game.
yeah, and angry may not necessarily be the right way to phrase it, but I think even more important, they'll be extremely motivated.
That's a better word. Yep.
Yeah, and that's all the little things. Yeah, I just yeah, you pull this one off, man. I mean, you ought to be dancing in the streets because you're right. I mean, theoretically, there's no better win in the country that anybody could go get than winning at Houston right now, based on
Yep.
road
Yeah.
game and their net ranking. It doesn't exist
Yeah.
as far as like toughest games on paper, right? They were the last undefeated team. And so anyways, so we'll see what you get. The
Yeah.
tricky thing though, the tricky thing is that when we start playing this data game and this resume game with the net rankings, you know what BYU's net ranking is?
I don't.
That's who's here on Saturday.
Right.
They are fourth.
Oh, that helps.
The computers love them, but based on what they did in the non-conference. And again, the
Okay.
ranking that they had them, they were 12th in the country, with the AP top 25s and all that. But yeah, their net ranking right now is currently sits at fourth, and they're 1-2 in the conference.
Wow.
So point being, like if you were to get a couple of wins this week, I mean your net ranking would be. I mean, it
Well,
could,
your net's going to go up just by playing games this week.
yeah, yes, yeah. Even if you were to go 0-2, your net would go up. You're right. Now you have to accumulate enough wins for it
Sure.
to all matter. But no, these are quad one games. Right now, the as good as you feel, you're at 14-2, you're 3-0 in the league. Your best win on paper is still the one in Austin, which
Mm-hmm.
is not that impressive, but it's your only quad one win.
Yeah.
And then you beat Kansas State on over the weekend, and I think your net went from 30 dropped to 37 because
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State's wasn't as good. So it's just fascinating how the data and the numbers move because yeah, you play Houston in Houston and you could lose and your net is going to go way up
Yeah.
based on just the fact that you played.
Yeah, I think a 1-1 week here is highly acceptable.
Well, but let's be honest though, you have to have that. You have to have a 1-1
Yeah.
week. Like you've got to win that home game at least.
You got to.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, it's not only is it just important because look at the week after. It's like you have a bye or whatever, but I guess the next week and a half you have a bye.
Yeah.
You play Saturday against BYU, then you don't play again until the following Saturday in Norman.
In Norman. Yep.
Yeah, and then I think you turn right around and you go to Fort Worth and play an early week game in Fort
Tuesday.
Worth that following week. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is 3 of your next 4 are on the road, and
Yep.
none of them look easy on paper at all.
Yeah. Got a question from the audience. Let's get to that one regarding basketball. It says, Level, are we Big 12 championship contenders now? If not, what else do you need to see to feel like we are?
Well, you've got to. I think you've got to win some more games on the road before I think you can legitimately, But I mean, again, you're as much of a contender as anybody right now with your undefeated conference record. But you've got 15 of these left,
Sure.
and 3 of your next 4 are on the road. So you start doing the math. I mean, if you don't win any road games over that stretch, you're going to be close to 500 after the first 7 conference games. Just because, and there's just no, I mean, there's just nothing on the schedule that you go, okay, we can get right here, or kind of we should win this game kind of mentality.
Sure.
there's going to be a lot of you need to win this game, because I thought differently a couple of weeks ago than I do now. Your next 3 home games are against the 3. I think they're on consecutive Saturdays with a trip to Oklahoma. So 3 of your next 4 Saturdays, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And they're against 3 of the newbies that have joined the league. You've got BYU, you've got Cincinnati, and you've got Central Florida, I think in that order. And BYU, we've established their net ranking and how well that they were in the non-conference. You wanted to look at Cincinnati and go, I don't think they're any good. Well, they almost just beat Baylor in Waco on a Saturday night without their starting center even playing. I mean, they gave the Bears all that they wanted, and most people would tell you Baylor is a Final Four contender or a league title contender and all that. So Cincinnati, I mean, they didn't shy away from it. Wes Miller's doing a really good job there as they and then Central Florida, it's like, well, they just pulled off a win over Kansas, which is, they've got multiple All-Americans and it does Kansas and all that stuff. So, yeah, good luck, man. I mean, but yeah, can you win this league? You're going to have to win some games, plural, on the road. And you've won 1, but you probably need 2 or 3 more and then to hold serve at home to get it done. Because, I mean, I think it's going to take at least 13-5 in your conference record to win the league. And even then you could be tied with somebody.
Yeah.
It may come down to like a head-to-head or whatever. But I'd be willing to bet 13-5, 14-4. I just don't know. I think the league is too difficult for anybody to get to like a 15-3 record. That's my take. And again, while we're talking about you've got to stay healthy. You just can't afford to have anybody miss some time, which is why it was such a big deal for Grant McCaslin to shout out Mike Neal and the trainer.
So, Level, we've established how tough of a game Houston's going to be this week.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, as we've seen, they've gone down 2 times in a row. So what is the formula for Tech to be able to go get a win on the road in a really tough environment?
Well, I think where Texas Tech really struggled against Kansas State is in the half court against Kansas State's length and athleticism. Houston has this as well. And so you've got to be able to turn over Houston and then take advantage of it. That's what you couldn't really do a good job of. You turn these guys over a bunch, but then it's your transition offense. You've got to be able to capitalize in the break and capitalize on mistakes and generate some offense this way. And then I would tell you, Houston is scary good on the glass. They're elite defensively, okay, but they're also scary good on the glass. You've got to do a good job on the glass on both ends of the floor, because if not, they just kind of maul you. And that's what and don't forget, you'll see a familiar face on that Houston roster, Malik Wilson, who was run out of here about a year ago by the previous staff. Didn't want him back. Didn't think he was this or that, I guess, and he ends up at Houston. He's in the rotation. He's playing. So he's still that elite athlete and all those things. And so, you think he may be a bit motivated too.
All right, one more question from the audience before we put a bow on this one, because it's really important stuff. It's one of those the start, bench, cut Level. The listener
bench Mike McCarthy, cut Dak Prescott.
Oh gosh.
Start Trey Lance. I don't. Okay, what are you gonna ask me? Yeah,
man, I have trust issues, not because of any relationships, just because of the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, my trust issues are. Like, how am I ever going to trust them? They had the best path ever to get to the NFC Championship game.
But it was the most Cowboys thing ever.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
But goodness gracious, I bought in again and had hope. And
youngest team in the league, big underdog.
I
mean,
I know,
on the road against a team that had won 16 straight. Green Bay didn't care.
Of course, everybody's darling Dan Quinn right now gets his lunch eaten.
That was really embarrassing. A lot of blame to go around in that one for the Dallas Cowboys.
Plenty. Yeah. Anyway, so much more
start bench cut. Okay,
much more important than than that. This one is from Jeff. Says start, bench, cut, pancakes, waffles, French toast, breakfast foods.
Start waffles as long as they're crispy. I mean, undone or
Yeah.
not non-crispy waffles are just a mess. I'm gonna bench pancakes, and then I'm gonna cut French toast.
Wow.
I will tell you that there is some fancy French toast that I would start, but like generally speaking, French toast, if we're talking Texas toast, I've actually had banana bread French toast before. I mean,
Oh,
some of these
dang.
shenanigans are phenomenal. They would move to the top of it. But generally speaking, if we're just keeping everything at their base, that's
Right.
how I would roll, because there's no better butter and syrup delivery device than the waffles little like pockets, especially when there's some crispy action going on there. So
Compartmentalize
yeah,
the
I mean, because
waffles.
that's all these are is just butter and syrup delivery devices, essentially.
Do you get fancy with the syrup, or are you just
No,
going?
no, boysenberry, yeah, bench that too, or strawberry or blueberry. No, bench it all. Maple syrup. What do you think I used to hold my hair up there, Slick? What's that? What's that? Was that the line from The
What is it?
Hangover? Yeah, The Hangover.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah.
So, all right. So now we got Level's basketball takes and breakfast food takes. So we're good to go for this week. Level, appreciate you as always, and hopefully at least another win, maybe a couple of wins next week. I don't want to get greedy, but would love to
Well, yeah,
talk
you
about.
can get greedy. We can get greedy all we want. It's just
Okay.
but you also have to be realistic.
Oh,
You need
okay.
to mesh the two thought processes there.
Okay. At least
Yeah,
a 1-1 week
yeah,
or next week that we
mesh. Yeah, that's
mesh.
right.
That's
Hey,
very nice.
hope for 1-1. Demand 1-1. It's all the
Demand.
same. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Hope these kids can continue to play well, stay healthy,
Yeah.
and all that, because it's been a lot of fun to watch and Grant do his thing, squeezing water out of a rock at some level with what he's got. But they're playing well. They play hard. And we'll kind of see what we get. But appreciate you, Woodman, and thank you for everybody being a part of this one. And thank you again to Cantex Roofing and
For
Construction.
sure. Yes, sir. That is Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. You've been tuned in to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3. Y'all have a great week.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.